Hello and welcome. Guys, we're here today to review or discuss. It's mainly a discussion, really. Probably of more of the whole show than just the third season, but we just finished the third season of the show Better Call Saul, which is a spin off slash prequel of Breaking Bad, focusing on the criminal defense lawyer who was kind of showy and I don't know, like a criminal himself in Breaking Bad, and this is just going into his backstory of his origins and stuff, and everything he goes through.
Yep.
Even though the first couple of seasons have been out for a while, we didn't really want to go into spoilers too much. We like this show, and we want to recommend it to people. And there's a lot of stuff that even though we watch them well after they air, I try to stay away from any spoilers.
And it has its good share of twists and turns.
Yeah.
That's better not knowing beforehand. Yeah, the show's about Jimmy McGill, aka Saul Goodman, that becomes Saul in Breaking Bad, but yeah, it starts out as kind of a shady lawyer in Better Call Saul, this show. So with this third season, it takes place, or yeah, continues the aftermath of his dealings with his brother, Chuck, or Charles McGill. That, yeah, the second season ended on kind of a cliffhanger with them. Events kept building more and more, and the rift between those two kept getting larger and larger, and really starting to butt heads even more. Yeah, a good chunk of this season delves into that, and his brother Chuck just really wanting to get back at him, and kind of the back and forth that just once one of the brothers strikes out at the other, then the other one needs to strike right back, and yeah, that just keeps escalating in this season too. And the whole deal with his brother thinking he has a disease where he's allergic to electricity, and addressing his mental state, essentially. All that stuff getting more and more interesting, and I keep, like, the show kept reminding me that, like, I kept wanting to treat Chuck as a villain, as the main adversary to Jimmy. But yeah, anytime I'm rooting for Chuck's comeuppance, then the show kind of flips things around, and I'm like, no, wait, he doesn't deserve anything horrible to happen to him. The show reminds you that he is a human being. He's not a villain. That yeah, that he's a very broken man, that you shouldn't be rooting for him to get his demise or whatever ends up happening to him. That yeah, this season ends on another cliffhanger where that they pulled the rug out from under you so often, setting up expectations like the previous season made you think for a second that he might die, like a heart attack scare, but that didn't happen, and Breaking Bad would do that too for a few characters that you'd think they were setting up something horrible, but ends up not being that bad. And this season ends that same way. Chuck's fate is kind of uncertain there, what's happening with him, but yeah, overall he's not a villain. If you're not supposed to root against Chuck, then I believe it's fine to root against Howard. Howard's the worst. That is Chuck's business partner. That he's just, oh, he's so slimy.
Yeah.
Very
Very slimy.
that's the exact word I was going with.
a lot of the show is really like Breaking Bad in the sense that it's a cautionary tale, like
Yeah.
always showing some characters making poor decisions and repercussions for
that
repercussions for their choices.
That's Jimmy's character in a
Yeah.
nutshell, just always making the wrong decision.
Yeah. But surprising, like, even up to the end of this season, he's still trying to do the right thing. So I'm still wondering when he's going to make the final switch to Saul Goodman we know from Breaking Bad.
Uh-huh.
I really like the style of this show being a lot more of a slow burner than Breaking Bad. Like, Breaking Bad was a much more breakneck speed, like not in a bad way, in a good way there. And then this one's slower paced and mild in a good way, like kind of its opposite counterpart, kind of. When we were first watching the very first season a few years ago,
which my memory's starting to get a little shady on the last two since it's been a year or more.
Yeah.
But
it took me about halfway through the first season to really get into it. The slower pace was hard to get used to at first, but then around halfway, I really got hooked. And then about ever since, I really like it about everywhere they go. And with about all the characters, like Jimmy, Chuck,
Mike. Don't forget Mike. Mike's still the best, don't worry.
Yeah, more on him later, but I also like Kim's character.
Yes. Always rooting for Kim.
Yeah, she's about the best character that doesn't get into the criminal side of things. Like Mike's a good guy, but he still gets into the criminal side of things. But then
she still lets Jimmy be Jimmy and sort of condones his behavior on a few occasions. She herself still tries to stay out of that.
And I really like their relationship that, in previous seasons it showed him telling her stuff, that all the stuff he did and like her critiques or whatever. But in this season, there was a lot of times where he did things that I wasn't sure if he would even own up to it to her. But then later you find out that she did know all about it. So they still have like a relationship where he tells her a lot of the stuff that's going on pretty honestly about stuff with the old folks.
And that helps set it apart from other things that usually other shows would go the route of Jimmy's character hiding all of his shenanigans and the shady stuff he's been up to, and then build that up for a big reveal where they fight and break up or whatever. And I'm glad this show hasn't gone that route. A little refreshing.
But. Yeah, very. And with Mike's character, like we were just talking, that it kind of seems like they're wrapping his storyline up for this show, or setting up for just where we see him in Breaking Bad.
Because he's already getting in cahoots with Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. And so, yeah, not really sure where they'll go with him after this season. But.
As I felt like ever since the first season, I thought had his great character episode that
he should have won the Emmy. He really should have for that first season. But
that episode was about his pinnacle in this show, in this show and Breaking Bad. I think that I can't remember what that episode was called. Anyway, it's the one he was nominated for the Emmy. After that, the second and third seasons, he's had interesting things to do that you always enjoy his scenes, but I feel like he's just kind of been putting along after that first season that hasn't gotten as much to do.
And it makes sense because that was definitely the emotional high point for the character. That going into his relationship with his son that passed away, and so yeah, that I understand that you can't really get that high with him again after that. But yeah, he's still a great character, and it's fun to see what he's doing. But
pouring cement.
Yeah. Being a good grandpa.
Yeah,
trying his best.
I also like how clean this show is. Even though there are the occasional F words, basically, if you took the F words out, it'd be TV 14 easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know when they actually aired on TV if they say it's 14 because they wouldn't. AMC's not a channel that has F words, I don't think.
I don't know.
I think it's a
yet.
premium channel,
Mhm.
so they wouldn't show that on when it airs. But yeah, there's just a few each season, kind of like about 5 each season, I'd say. Not really too, maybe just a couple in the first 2. Then there was a few more in this. There's like 3 in subtitles right there at the end. Other than that, the content's really very mild.
Mhm. Milder than I would have expected.
About the worst thing I can think of is probably about the first couple episodes of the first season. It's the very first case. It shows Jimmy taking on that. A little gross, but yeah, other than that, hasn't really gotten into anything I can think of.
Mhm. But yeah, Bob Odenkirk as Jimmy, aka Saul, is still great. That he balances that line between likable and yeah, a little bit of a sleaze.
I still like, even though a lot of the show centers around him kind of manipulating and the retired folks, and like, because while for a lot of it, he's just what they call elder law, like setting up wills and stuff. And you can tell, even though sometimes he's manipulative, he still cares
Yeah.
about them. I think that.
Uh-huh.
So that's an interesting dynamic character trait. I think that he still cares a lot of the time. That he hasn't lost that.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to have necessarily seen Breaking Bad to enjoy this show. I think it stands fairly well on its own. Just there's a few Easter eggs and nice little things that you can appreciate if you've seen Breaking Bad, but you don't have to be tied to that show and remember that show necessarily.
It's pretty easy to follow on its own. But yeah, just fans of Breaking Bad would appreciate certain characters showing up a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of see the direction of where they're going with certain elements, like Nacho's side plot with Hector Salamanca. That we know Hector ends up in that wheelchair, so something's gonna happen.
Yeah, and to where you can't talk or something, maybe
Uh-huh.
a stroke or something. But and I've read audience reviews about people concerned that it had a too slow a pace. I really don't agree with that. This sets the bar for slow paced shows. Slow paced shows I'd complain about would be the Marvel Netflix shows that they're a little too slow. They could trim it up a little bit. And the
Yeah.
Better Call Saul's 10 episodes. Those are usually 13.
Uh-huh.
So
That's why I've never gotten into those Marvel shows, because just yeah, I start zoning out because they just don't get things rolling fast enough.
they need to trim their fat
Uh-huh.
for sure.
But yeah, I don't mind it at all here.
Yeah, this is great. Since we didn't want to go into spoilers, I think we're about wrapping it up there. That we really appreciate a lot of things that this show does, like great characters.
Mm-hmm.
Very curious to see where it takes us, where it connects the two shows in the future.
Yeah, and yeah, I've never been as big of a Breaking Bad fan as like everyone else. If you look around on the internet, like most people proclaim that as like one of, if not the best television shows. I really like Breaking Bad, but it's never been like one of my all-time favorite things. But yeah, it's definitely a great show. But I put this on about the same level. It's never been disappointing for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand why others like it's not as groundbreaking as Breaking Bad. No pun intended. Just for me, I'm able to root for Jimmy more than Bryan Cranston. That I I blanked on his name. Walter White. I'm sorry, internet. I know his name. Walter White.
Yeah, you know his name.
uh, that's one of the main reasons that I didn't quite get into Breaking Bad as much as everyone else. I was always curious to see where the show would go, but I was never rooting for Walt. Even though he's a very interesting character, just yeah, he's not the most likable of people, and neither is Jimmy. But like he's still likable enough.
Hmm. I'm curious to see where they're going to take those little black and white segments at the beginning of each season that
Right.
take place after Breaking Bad.
Mhm.
That yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen Breaking Bad that watches this show, those little black and white segments are meant to be far in the future, like the most future stuff we've ever seen of the character.
With the end of Breaking Bad putting Saul's character into witness protection.
Criminal
Yeah,
yeah.
the criminal version of witness
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah. So I think that's about it.
Mhm.
And oh, I'm so sorry. Bid you farewell, little babies. No. Okay, sorry.
Hey, Buttercup.
Yeah. Butter, butter, butter.
Oh no, it's okay, Butter.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. No. No.
She doesn't
okay.
want to be a celebrity.
Oh no. I'm so sorry, butter. So sorry. Okay. Yeah.
I had to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Bye.